Don't you just love amateur productions? Thoroughly amateur productions? I'll be honest, I see some of these videos and there's so much stuff that's there just because they can without it serving any useful purpose. I would like to have a better setup, but not one of those. I am a thorough amateur. This is a thoroughly amateur production. I'm Robert McKay. The channel is Whiskey for Beginners. And today I want to deal with the question, find it on my list here, should you try to review whiskey? That's up to you, really. I never intended to review every whiskey I ever drank, but I've been writing my whole life. I'm fairly good at it. You hear me on these videos, I sound like a hick. I am a hick. But I can write well. I can use English well, even if I don't always do it. And so that part was in place. And it turned out I like going in and sorting out what I find on the nose, what I find on the palate, what I find on the finish, and setting it forth and putting it out there for whomever might want to read it. And I do some video reviews too. If you've paid attention to this channel, you know that. And they're always briefer. They're not nearly as detailed, because when I do a written review, it can take me half an hour to get through the nose, get through the palate, get through the finish, write a summary, really evaluate it. And I don't want to do a half-hour video reviewing a whiskey. So should you review whiskey? It's up to you. Now, I would advise that if you do it, you be able to use English fairly well, which is, I have to be honest, that's about all you can really expect from Americans anymore. Unlettered farmers who had hardly been to school at all wrote more literate letters during the War for Southern Independence than a lot of college graduates can do today. They wrote better English then, without public education, mind, than people do today who have college degrees. And so I'm not going to demand that you write like William F. Buckley. I don't write like William F. Buckley, for that matter, although I can be thoroughly sesquipedalian. But you do need to have some grasp of English, how to use it properly, how to say clearly and precisely what you mean, even though reviewing whiskey is not always a precise business. You need to come as close to it and have as much clarity as you can. And, of course, you need to develop your palate. I can get more out of a whiskey now than I could 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago is when I started. So you have to be able to use English. You have to have at least some experience, although trying to review whiskey can be experience, because when you're reviewing it, you're not just enjoying it, you're trying to dig out of it what's there. Ability to use English, at least somewhat experienced palate, and then the desire to do it. If you don't want to, then don't. Nobody says you have to do reviews. You know, if you're online in a whiskey group somewhere, it might be that you just taste it and say, this has got a ton of honey in it. Or, this is a very oaky whiskey. That may be the sum total of what you want to do with whiskey. And that's fine. You don't have to review it. If you want to, go for it. If you don't want to, no big deal. And so, make sure on my list I mark that I've already done it. And so, it's up to you. I think the more whiskey reviewers we have, the better, because it's so subjective that the more there are out there, the more of a database there is for somebody to get an idea of what a whiskey is like before he tries it. But if you don't want to, you don't have to. If you don't want to, you shouldn't. It's pretty much that simple.